So I have a bunch of slides, but I'm going to try to go really fast, and then we'll get to the meat of the potatoes. See how that goes. So on my presentation, I don't have a research project. We are our own subjects and our own objects. So we conflated those two together. So my talk is really about myth and life in the Meso-American diaspora. I think you've seen different pieces of that. You'll see some more. I think you've seen the stark reality presented by Daniela. And I'm going to talk about a particular situation that we went through, and then really talk about some of my thoughts on the issue of myth and migration and why we keep insisting. Right? So this is three sections: myth, diaspora, and the seed, and then the conclusion at the end. Okay. So we came out of a social struggle. There's a couple of people here who were involved, Sochi, and then Albert and Liz. Are you guys here? They're up there, over there. Actually, Albert and Liz. Albert is a UCLA graduate. He's also a farmer. So you can go back, even if you don't want to. And Liz is finishing up her degree here also. So we used to have the largest urban garden in the U.S. Back in the beginning, after the 1992 uprising, and then we eventually got evicted in 2006, at the end of 2006. So I wanted to, kind of go fast with these pictures so you get an idea. This is the type of kind of small parcel, micro-entrepreneurial situation that people involved. A lot of heritage foods, a lot of places for kids to play. You can see different shops. People. This woman is picking up corn stalks to make tamales with the corn leaves. Okay, you can't get that in the market these days. When we were evicted, it was national. We had a whole day of media for ourselves, which was not too bad. It didn't involve driving a white Bronco. This is, some of the scenery. A lot of youth were involved in this situation. In this particular scenario, these kids took down a bulldozer by taking a zucchini and shoving it down the exhaust pipe. That was a good use of. So this is what they left, and actually today, this is where they shut down the bulldozer. We were evicted with 385 sheriffs and LAPD. Probably the money they spent on the eviction is they could have bought the place 2 or 3 times over. But it was more about the symbolic nature of, not making sure this didn't happen. And this is Albert in the middle there, with his prayer with chard. Yeah. Saint Chard. Yeah. And he is he's picking up chard there. And this is part of the farming we did in Fresno. And then some of the other folks, some of the specialty items that we've evolved out of the experience, some of the squash with blossoms, tomatoes, some of the recognitions that we've gotten, some of our folks working in the packing trailers. This is a little bit of where our food goes, and actually, if you see the little icons there, that's our all the places we affect across LA. Via the farmers market, we affect about 40,000 people. We have the largest community-supported agriculture in LA. And actually, we have 2 CSA dropouts in UCLA, right, Howard? 3. Wow. Okay. I didn't even know I had growth. A little bit of the work, we work with kids, work about education, do farm trips, and actually that picture over there is a little bit of our seed saving process. We try to do as much seed saving as possible. This idea of doing a worker-owned cooperative is really one of the things that we've been pushing. So these are kind of a little bit of our goals we work on, and we're trying to do, create educate, innovate, and restore our traditional foodways, eliminate hunger in California, build a market for locally grown, and do a lot of grassroots economic development. A little bit of a current project is our commercial kitchen expansion that involves value-added products, and actually Albert and Liz will be sampling people at the break. If you'd like, we'll have some healthy snacks. So, the question is all this junk food, and we have to make our own healthy food if we want it. Again, this is a little bit about, some of that work that we do. And really some of the notable recognitions is, the Academy nominated documentary, The Garden, which if you have Netflix, you can download or play it or watch the whole story of that. Largest community supported agriculture in LA, and then this year we were recognized as the Social Justice Award. This is the second year from the Natural Resource Defense Council. And that's the big spread that did. So really then this gets me to a little, how much?
About 6 minutes.
Okay, good. So that'll give us some meat and potatoes. So really then the question is, what is the function of myth in culture creation, and how does that interact with, like in the case of our first foods for this discussion that we had earlier this morning with Rebecca. Really I wanted to take two different definitions. One is the definition from Barthes, and the idea that, that myth is a kind of special speech. It's a work material. Sometimes it's a second order signifier. It means that it doesn't really have a real original situation. And really just focus on that kind of that is and historical, right? So there's no historical materialism for the Marxists in the room. And that it tries to create a naturalization of phenomena or observable cultural phenomena. In that sense. So I want to present two kind of interesting conflicting definitions of myth. And then myth is simulacrum, or simulacra from Baudelaire's work. I don't know, where's my Francois person? Maybe she can teach us how to pronounce his last name. What's his last name?
Baudrillard.
Okay, that is last name. So I'll speak with Baudelaire. So in his situation, I know he has like 8 different conditions for the hyper-realization of the myth. And in particular, I think what I like about these two definitions is really how I classify myth is whether one regenerates life or the other one terminates life. Right? So we call it the terminator myth, or the regenerative myth that regenerates life. So taking culture and myth as the Kantian totalizing moment of society, right? The function of culture in society is the regeneration of life, and if we take Jean's version of it, which is that we kind of spin off in a certain way, and we create a society that terminates life. But at the very end of it, it ends with Tanato's model, right? End up with death, a death society. We've had a couple of death cults, right? The drinking Kool-Aid and putting the purple hoods on. And that's a kind of myth making that's terminal, right? There's no end. The Vatican would be classified as a kind of terminal. There's no regeneration. So I hope we're comfortable. So I hope I made that clear. So we have these ideas then of diaspora, and really the diaspora is really internal, external, economic, climatic, and so what I'm trying to say is really this has been a phenomenon that's been part of this continental situation for millennia, and I think that the end of the La Tira de la Peregrinación from the codices, the Meso-American codices, really outlined that situation. And I outlined it in two kinds of ways. One is I use Robert Sinclair's the visual metaphors, cultural knowledge about, there are two main metaphors in Mesoamerica. One is the pilgrimage, right? And the second one is the quaternity, the 4 directions. And then there's the third one, the hybridization, is both of them. You have a pilgrimage with a quaternity. Okay? And then, so we've had some discussions about absolute, cardinal, referential, and culture, and all those things. We'll leave those for another presentation. And so, in this situation, we have this description, and I don't want to read this stuff to you, but in reality, then we have migration as a pilgrimage, and migration is establishment of the four quarters of the universe, and now in particular, you have the 9 levels up and the 9 levels down. And really, more really to say, in the words of Enrique Florescano, really that our concept of movement is really more about circular movement rather than a linearized or monotonic increasing time. And the reason this is important is because I'm going to try to devoid ourselves of the concept of time, particularly as it relates to the movement of matter, right? I mean, I think if you look at the work of Einstein, what his phenomenal work to me in the end was really the separation of psychological time from the movement of matter. Matter does not move according to time, it moves according to movement, right? So his work is really focused on that. And for us, that's a natural intuition, because when we work as farmers, we're working against the movement of matter, whether it's the changing cycles of the sun matter, changing cycles of the weather matter, and we haphazardly correlated with psychological time, but in reality, there's very little correlation, right? It's just that we're in a quasi-stable system that is moving, right? That's the whole concept of climate change, right? All of a sudden, this is no longer a steady state, right? Now it's in a regenerative system that is in constant dissipation, and it's contracting and expanding, contracting and expanding. And we all want it to. We don't want that much diversity. We want it to be fixed, right? We want to have predictable patterns. We want to have that, and nature doesn't work that way. It's not on our schedule, right? It's on the schedule of the way matter moves. So for us, our mythology really speaks to that idea, and I know that Francois brought up the idea of, is the seed the beginning or is the seed the end? Well, it's simultaneously both, right? So we'll get some more into that. And so I have some couple of time maps as we have proto-farmers talking about the idea of migration, so you can get an idea that the timelines are up there. And if we look, you start to see the migration from hunter and gatherers to farmers. And then you start to see really that evolution start to have to where you get to the modern situation where actual sovereign states are actually interfering with migration. And we see that this is the big issue, right? That the migration has been a fact of nature, of the movement of mass bodies and animals and plants and winds and all of that matter. And now we're constricted by abstract ideas like sovereign states. And so I was showing this when I was talking to Lindsay about it. They found this Mayan pyramid in North Georgia. That's 1,000 years old. I'm not making this up, even if I wanted to. It's too good. So then I get to this idea of the seed, and I really want to get into the myth of where this really comes from. And this is from La Leyenda de los Sodas from the Códice Xolo. And so I'm going to kind of read it because this is really where I see the meat and potatoes of this whole discussion about culture, seeds, and humanity, and all of this. So Quetzalcoatl, he gathered the fresh. This is a longer story, but so I'm going to give you the Reader's Digest first. Gathered up the previous bones from 4 other different ages, and the bones of the man were together on one side, and the bones of the woman were together on the other side. And Quetzalcoatl took them and made them a bundle. Again, Xinachtlí, the Lord of Death, said to those who served him, gods, is Quetzalcoatl really carrying away the precious bones? Gods, go and dig a hole. They went and dug a hole, and Quetzalcoatl stumbled, frightened by quail, and fell into the hole. He fell down as if dead, and the precious bones were scattered so that the quail chewed and gnawed them up. After a while, Quetzalcoatl was revived. He was breathed, and he said to his Nawal, so, when you're a god, you can have psychoanalyst with you, that's the one. So, what shall I do now? He's not well, answered him. Although the affair has started badly, let it continue as best as it may. I really love this idea. Quetzalcoatl gathered up the bones, put them together, made again a bundle, and carried them to Tamanchan, which is the land of fog and mist. As soon as he arrived, the goddess Xinachtlí means to sprout, and also called Siguacol, or the woman serpent, and ground them up and put them in a fine earthen tub. So this part is important. I won't tell you what it is, but she makes a little figurine, like a human figure, or like this, okay? And she puts it on this little tub, and then Quetzalcoatl leads his organ on them, and immediately the gods name. So we have these 6 people: Apanteucli, Huitolincli, Tepanquisqui, Tlalamanqui, Xontemoc, and Quetzalcoatl make sacrifice over the situation. And so this is really important, because what do these people mean, right? So we have Tlalamanqui, means the one laid on the earth. Tepanquisqui means the one that comes out of the earth. Okay? Apanteucli means Lord of the water. And Huitolincli means the one that moves the hoe. And then the last one, 2 more. Quetzalcoatl stands up straight like a snake. And Xontemoc means the one that descends by the hair. And so, and I gave it away, huh? So what do these really mean? So can you kind of give me an idea what are they describing?
Corn.
So they're talking about the whole process of creation of corn. So the question is, who creates corn? Is it, did I ended up like in double vision. So let's continue. So everybody makes sense in that picture, except there's one person that doesn't make sense, and that's Xontemoc. So what does descending by the hair have to do with corn production? Where's the geneticists of corn? The wheat.
Corn silk.
Exactly, right? So what does justice have to do? So the name for a judge in Nahuatl is a Xontemoc. Okay? So what does justice have to do with descending by a hair, and then the corn, being pollinated from the tassel down to the hair on the corn? So I'm going to give it away. So got a couple minutes. So in reality, if we go back to the original story, Quetzalcoatl is on top, right? So he's bleeding his organ, and he's falling, and Xinachtlí is on the bottom, right? So Xinachtlí has made a little kind of crucible, right, which is the corn cob itself with the tassel on it, right? So the story it's circular, right? So which one begins which? Does the corn begin humanity, or does humanity begin corn? So it's inconclusive from this story, right? So who is the creator and who is the originator, right? So this is the causation. Where is the causation here, right? There is no transcendent object from the outside coming in and saying, here's corn, here's your lifeblood, right? It is they themselves who create it. And so and this is the way they concluded, and they said, oh gods, the Masehuales are born. Thus we mortals owe our life to penance, because for our sake the gods did penance. So the word Masehualtin means to be deserving of. Okay? So this, so I have a larger part of it, but I have 2 minutes left, so I'm going to try to squeeze as much. But in reality then, this idea of self-generation and autopoiesis is really what I try to capture in this diagram, which is too complicated to cover in 2 minutes. But you see the spirals, the evolving spirals, and then the dissipating cycles of regeneration there. There's a lot of weird things going on. Okay. So see if we can get, I don't know if I'm doing it or it's doing it itself. Okay, so while they sorted that out, Are we live again? We did? No, I have control. I love these things.
God has taken over. It's its own way.
I know, man. It has imminence.
Yeah.
So anyway, I love this this creation story. It's probably one of my best creation stories that I like about the whole Meso-American plateau, because it really, in the sense of myth creation, it really challenges the logic of anything. It really say, in this sense, who creates who, right? And who is the originator? I think, like for example, one of the deities, his name is Mokekeloa, or the one who invents himself, right? So they have this really rich metaphoric language for this kind of work. So anyway, we cover that, and really the idea of this rooted language or this rooted culture is really expressed in the language, and this is what I wanted to cover last, is really how this is expressed in the language. And so now what has about 210 roots, okay? We call them roots, or they're called raíces in Nahuatl. So you begin with a stem, and I have some examples of that. And then I'm going to show you, this is what we call the Tokayotlahtoli, or the nominative frame looks like. If you look in the middle, there's a section that says root, and then everything roots out from there. So even the language is rooted, so there's not only a cultural component of rootedness, of how to root yourself as a society, but also the language expresses this kind of agglutinating process of rootingness. And so you see all of when you create a noun, you begin with a genotype, and then it expresses in the environment as a phenotype based on the conditions that you put on it, right? See? And the same thing, this is the Chihuayotlahtoli, or the verbs, okay? And you see there's a root, but the roots can be nouns and can be verbs also. Okay? So they don't suffer from the objectification that exists in like English. And I know Rachel was studying about body parts, and one of the interesting things about Nahuatl is that Nahuatl things cannot exist without relation. So your hand has to have some relation. So it's your hand, my hand, or somebody's hand. But there's no hands in the universe by themselves, right? As a human being, you're a person, but you don't exist as a person. You are Lucia's son, Lucia's daughter, somebody. When you become a parent, it's the child that makes you a parent, right? You don't get to be a parent without somebody making you, some established relationship to make you, right? So, he made me a parent, right? Because his birth made me that. So, in a sense, really, that we get to appreciate that. So, in my conclusion, then, because of all the technical ones, I get a little bit. Please.
Yes.
So, I argue then that the set of processes that are deployed really involve the mechanics of transcendence that generate, if we take, for example, the myth creation process that Jean describes, then we get this kind of recursive abstraction that pulls you away from the real or the material versus one that binds you further and further. And I think if we look at what's happening with our friends, the Zapotecos here, is we see this kind of form of abstraction happening. And so this transcendence, and I think Mr. Cleveland was mentioning this idea that we've abstracted so far, we've transcended so far from the material reality that it's no longer real, it's a simulation now, right? And that I argue that this particular cultural structure forces a kind of immanence, right? That it forces you to try to remain in the causation and the condition that created you. And in doing so, it prevents differentiation in being, right? So at the end of the game, immanence gives you equality of being, right? So in the way that the language describes relation making, it creates it at the level of equality, not at the level of transcendence. Now, if you got all of that, Talk to me later. Thank you.